Other news, Jeffrey Rupnow, the man whose daughter was responsible for a deadly school shooting in Madison, will stand trial after a judge ruled there is enough evidence to move the case forward. Rupnow was in court for a preliminary hearing this afternoon. He's accused of providing a dangerous weapon to someone under 18 years old and contributing to child delinquency. Authorities say his daughter Natalie shot and killed a student and a teacher at Abundant Life Christian School on Madison's east side last December while injuring several others. Natalie then died by suicide. Rupnow's attorney moved to dismiss the count of contributing to child delinquency, arguing that prosecutors had no evidence Rupnow gave his daughter the gun she used during the shooting. But prosecutors say Rupnow allowed his daughter to access guns despite her history of mental health issues and behavior online.
Those firearms may have been kept in a gun safe in the home, yet the defendant also gave NR the ability to enter that gun safe by telling her how she could find the combination.
Circuit Court Commissioner John Rome denied the motion to dismiss the count of contributing to child delinquency, finding probable cause. Rupnow's hearing lasted for about an hour and a half.